Tyler O'Neill hits another opening day home run, this time in Toronto against Braxton Berrios. This makes the 6th straight OD with an HR for Tyler O'Neill. Only Jordan Belfort has had to deal with as many OD-related HR incidents. The Orioles split the series with the Blue Jays 2-2. Speaking of drugs, Jurickson Profar received an 80-game and postseason suspension for the illegal use of HCG. This is the same substance that Manny Ramirez used way back when to restart natural testosterone production after a steroid cycle. I can understand outfielders wanting to replicate Manny Ramirez's career, but this takes it just a bit too far. Let's keep the admiration to on the field, gentlemen. This loss won't affect the Braves too much, seeing as they have one of the worst records in the MLB. At one point, they endured a 29-inning scoreless streak. 29 without scoring. That sounds like your average Tampa Bay Rays fan. Profar tried to appeal the ruling to the judge, but the courtroom was closed with the judge being out of office, going 4 for 6 with 3 home runs and 5 barrels. The most barrels in one game since the StatCast era, tied with, you guessed it, Aaron Judge in 2022. Speaking of elite performances, we head to the banks of the Ohio River where Elly De La Cruz puts Kumar in a rocking chair with 2 home runs and a stolen base, completing a 4 for 5 night. Ironically enough, this was the first game using the world-famous Torpedo bat. When asked why he used it, he had this to say. I just like the way the bat feels in my hand. It really has nothing to do with the fact that those New York scumbags put up a bajillion runs when they used them. It just feels good. And I certainly don't care that it pushes the ethical limits of the game. If it feels good in my hands, I'm going to use it. I also love it in Los Angeles. It's my favorite city. I hope they let me use the Torpedo bat because it feels great in my hands, says L.A. De La Cruz. And here's one for maybe the older audience that's listening. Elly De La Cruz looking more like Ellie Mae Clampett against the Texas Rangers, hitting black gold Texas T or maybe Texas Torpedo against the Rangers, going 4 for 5, 2 home runs, and 1 stolen base. These numbers will have him loading up the truck and moving to Beverly Hills. L.A. De La Cruz. Speaking of the Dodgers, Freddie Freeman re-injured his surgically repaired foot and was out of the lineup on Monday. I'm not sure I have a joke for this one. It's just hilarious that out of all of the ways he could have re-aggravated an injury, it's not by a hit by pitch, but by cleaning himself. Now let's throw it to our college correspondent, Willen Dilkerson. Yeah, thanks, Dylan. Game on the line here. I have no earthly clue who is playing. Ball hit hard to right field. The fielder has the chance to throw out the runner at home. The throw is on the line. Oh, no, the catcher can't make the play. Whoever this team is on offense wins. I have no idea who it is. If you're the catcher there, you have to get in front of the ball and make that play. Back to you, Dylan. Thanks, Willen. In defensive news, the Chicago White Sox pitchers are the only remaining unit to have not given up an earned run. That's right, a 0.00 ERA to start the season for the White Sox. Keep this up and the White Sox may earn enough street cred in Chi-Town to borrow the Cubs' tarp. The Oakland Athletics made it a priority to sign their biggest stars to extended contracts. Let's kick it to the A's Media Center for their thoughts on how the season is going so far. Yeah, we did a great job of extending our players like Rooker, Butler, and even signing Severino to a good deal. However, we ran out of money very quickly. Fans, if you're listening, please buy tickets and concessions so we can get out of this shed. Yes, they are actually taking questions from the press in a shed. We head to Houston where the Astros and the Giants face off. Jordan got hickey with it, relentlessly coming at the Astros' neck like a 16-year-old boy after prom, getting the win off of 6 innings pitched, 6 Ks, and 0 earned runs. If you think that's a lot of Ks, let's check in on Rafael Devers. David Duke is out there salivating somewhere right now. And that's your week in baseball. We're live. Was that good? Was that good, Carter?
That was good, yeah.
We're live. We're going to be recapping all the action from the first week of the MLB season. It's crazy to think we're already a week in. When you think of KarterKast, you think of, normally 3 or 4 very handsome gentlemen with the best sports takes in the world. But it's usually football. It's usually basketball. We're doing baseball today, Carter. And the word on the street is you've been to one more baseball game than I have this year already.
Yep, I went to Yankees versus Brewers, and I got to see the Torpedo bats up close, and it was awesome.
So you went to the game that was... Well, actually, when you went to that game, what did you text me? You texted me something. We could discuss this. What was the first thing you texted me?
Remind me. I don't remember. I feel like that was like 3 days ago. It feels like 10 years ago.
You sent me a text and you said, Dylan, are the Yankees winning the World Series?
Yes, I did.
And this was the game that first 3 pitches, home run. You had who I can't even remember who was batting leadoff. But then it was Jazz Chisholm, or no, Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, Goldschmidt, Bellinger, Judge, then Chisholm. I remember the lineup.
Jazz hit one somewhere along the line. I do remember that. You asked me, are the Yankees winning the World Series? To which I replied, I think I said no, because the Dodgers stand in the way. But how was the experience? You said you had some things you wanted to get off your chest about the Yankees game.
Yeah, so I've been to a few major league parks. I've been to San Diego, the Padres. Maybe one day we'll do a podcast where we break down Padres, Mets, my sweet
Your Mets, number 1 Mets fan in the world.
My first Yankees game. I've been to 5 soccer games at Yankee Stadium. Never a baseball game yet. I went to a couple MLS games, and then Liverpool had a couple preseason games there.
At Yankee Stadium?
At Yankee Stadium, yes.
Are the dimensions like a football field can fit in a baseball field?
Yeah. I mean, because they've played – Northwestern's played games at Wrigley Field.
Yeah, but that's football.
Did they play Ohio State?
Yeah, but that's football. Are football and soccer the same length?
Yeah, just about. The end zone to end zone, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that. Not a soccer guy.
Not a soccer guy, not a soccer podcast. That was talking soccer. But anyhow, Yankee Stadium. Been to a few. Wrigley, still my favorite ballpark I've been to. Wrigley was awesome. It is, as advertised, extremely cool. And I went to the most dead game possible. Actually, the quickest game in like 15 years in all of Major League Baseball. It ended in like an hour 40. And so, there was like one run. I think it was your Reds, actually, I saw, if I remember correctly.
Sounds about right. One run sounds about right.
Yankee Stadium, the thing I will say about that was, I know I went to a really good game. I know there was a bunch of home runs, and that makes it better. I've been to Dodgers versus Braves. I've been to the Braves. The Yankees fans were the most entertaining, the most intense. I thought they were the best fan base I've seen in baseball.
Karter, they're all scumbags. That's why they're all Italian scumbags.
Sure. I'm sure, yeah. And everyone's going to be like, are you a Duke fan? Are you a Duke, Yankees, Bama football? No. Just Duke basketball from North Carolina. I don't care for the Yankees. I don't give 2 craps about the Yankees. I don't honestly care that much about baseball, for being honest. But being there at the ballpark, that was the best baseball environment I've ever been in.
The Yankees fans do get, very rowdy. Yeah, I think that's fair. Now, how was the park as a whole? Because I've been to Yankee Stadium. I was not very it did not excite me at all going to Yankee Stadium.
If you ask old baseball heads, everyone tells you, "Oh, the old Yankee Stadium was there, old Yankee Stadium." And I 100% believe it, because that's what makes these stadiums cool, like Wrigley, the history behind it, Fenway and all that stuff. But like when you're at it almost feels empty for some reason. Like something's missing when you're at Yankee Stadium, the new one for that matter. And it was fine. Like, the seats were really comfy. Like the food was okay. Everything was a little overpriced, like you'd expect.
Yeah.
But the ticketing, the scanning your tickets to get into the game is a disaster. And
it is.
It was a disaster on Saturday.
What, were they just not reading them? The tickets weren't scanning, or what?
No, just the lines were so long. Nothing was efficient. It was just a full-blown nightmare. But anyhow, Yankee Stadium I thought was okay. It was fine. Definitely not a top 5 ballpark I've been to, though. But the environment, number 1 without question. I would say number 2 was Dodgers.
I believe that. Never been to Dodger Stadium. Did you get There's 2 helmets you can get at the Yankee Stadium that I know of for sure. One was new for this year. Number 1, the chicken tender helmet.
So I didn't get that. We got the bucket.
Oh, maybe it's the bucket then. Maybe I'm thinking it's the chicken tender bucket then.
No, we should have gotten it. They do a souvenir drink and then put chicken tenders around it. And so it was all in one.
I know what you're talking about. Yes. I've seen that on X before. Now, let me share this with you, because this is new for this year. Oh my gosh. There we go. Share screen. Did you get the tiramisu helmet?
I did not. Did
you see it?
See that. I didn't see any. Maybe I did and I didn't realize it. I did not see that.
This is a food item. This and the s'mores quesadilla that I think the Phillies are doing it this year are two items that I would absolutely love to get. And then obviously a chicken tender, any chicken tenders in any sort of cup or bowl shaped item, a bowl or a helmet. You know, you have to get those whenever you're at a baseball game.
The problem is, like, Yankee Stadium, like, everything's so expensive. I think if you're getting a beer there, it's like $20.
Yeah, it's baseball prices are crazy. That's why whenever you come to the Reds game on whenever that was, Friday before Memorial Day, the Reds, very generous bringing in food policy. What would that be called? A food allowance policy? You can bring in anything as long as it's in its original packaging. So, like, you go to the ballpark area. I prefer Condado's tacos. You can go get to-go nachos, take them in. They don't care. You can bring in drinks as long as they're in a soft-shelled cooler. It's great. You can save tons of money. So, noted for next time you go. But, yeah, prices at baseball games are insane.
Yeah, I went to Dodger Stadium last year. I think it was last year. A Dodger dog was like $10 or something. And it was just like your most average hot dog.
You're out of luck. The more Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, the more they pay for their players, the more you're going to have to pay for concession. Because people are all excited about, oh, we got the best players. The consumer gets screwed. You get to watch a good team, but if you go to a game, you're going to be paying $10 for a Vienna sausage hot dog.
But for that Yankee game, it was worth it. That game was awesome. Best baseball game I've ever been to. 3
pitches, 3 home runs, and that was when all of the torpedo bat controversy started. That was the game that Aaron Judge had 3 home runs, I think. 4 for 5 with 3 home runs, like 11 RBIs. The torpedo bat discussion has taken over the baseball world. Is it legal? Should it be legal? What have you? Here's what I'm going to say. I was big anti-torpedo. I'm anti-fun. I was big anti-torpedo bat when the Yankees had that game where everybody went off.
Oh, and then you saw Ellie De La Cruz play with it, and you go, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I knew it.
And then Ellie De La Cruz is like, you know what? He was like, oh, I just felt great in my hand. The bat felt great in my hand. After the game, he goes 2 home runs, 4 for 5 or whatever, 3 for 5, a stolen base. I was all in on the torpedo bats after that. But on a serious note, everybody can use them.
That's what I'm saying. Now, okay, so this becomes a bigger discussion more about, okay, is it hurting the sanctity of the stats and the numbers of baseball and whatnot? So are you okay with pitchers having worse stats all of a sudden because these dudes can just hit crazy bombs all of a sudden?
That's going to be the question. And I hear what you're saying 100%. I've had this conversation internally. It's like everybody can use the bat. It's going to inflate offensive numbers, right? And there's rumors in baseball that some years we've gotten a dead ball. Some years we've gotten a live ball. I think we currently have a juiced ball. As of yesterday, there were 170 total home runs in the first 5 days of games. Like, it just seems like we're getting a juiced ball. It's all just going to depend on what the Manfred and what Major League Baseball wants to do as a whole. If they're okay with those numbers being inflated, then I don't have a problem with it. But they're going to have to come down eventually and say, okay, you can't use a torpedo bat anymore. But essentially, let me just lay this out here for anybody that doesn't know. The torpedo bat, what we're talking about, you're essentially moving the barrel of the bat closer to the handle. So you put more wood, like Anthony Volpe for the Yankees is a guy that's using it. Aaron Judge is not using it. He is not using a torpedo bat. Jazz Chisholm is. There's a couple other. Bellinger is. Guys that are missing the barrel closer to the hands are moving the barrel of the bat closer to their hands. The physicists say there's more control in your swing. Obviously, if you're hitting a piece of the bat with more wood, the ball is going to go farther. So the discussion is that okay or not? So,
yeah, and my other thing about this is, to be honest, I think the torpedo bats are fine. I don't really care about the inflated numbers now. I'm not a baseball purist or historian by any means. But my reason for it is we've seen it in other sports, though. Like, think about the NFL, Dylan. now that NFL, the defenses get called for everything, and they're, you can't rough the passer, and offense has become so much easier for the quarterback in the NFL. Quarterback numbers are inflated so much where before you have 20,000 passing yards or whatever in your NFL career, you're probably going to the Hall of Fame, but now that we just adjust, and that's my thing is, look, we can just now understand, okay, this was this era of baseball, this is this new era. We do that in every other sport. In football, we talk about it. Like, look, we all know in the 80s, 90s, quarterbacks weren't throwing for 350 yards a game and whatnot. They weren't running everywhere besides Steve Young. Now, all these quarterbacks can run, they can throw for 500 yards in a game, and it's not this crazy, crazy thing. And then we see it in basketball as well, too. I just think that's what it's going to become with baseball. Also, this gets talked about way too much in baseball discourse. I'm sure, real baseball fans cannot stand this discussion, but look, baseball is, is the younger generation buying into baseball? Is the TikTok people, are TikTok kids going to buy into baseball? Well, hey, man, this is the way to get them in.
It really, and me personally, if you are a watcher of the show, I like, in most sports, I like unders, I like no points, I like good defense. Baseball is probably the one sport that I would be okay with runs and run production, because I think that's more of a testament to the batters than, lazy defense. Because a lot of times you hit a baseball, it doesn't matter what the defense does. It's going to be a hit regardless. Or if you hit it over the fence, it doesn't matter what the defense does. I think the question you pose is fair, is how are we going to compare a different era of baseball? But you're right. It's present in every other sport. So if everybody can use the torpedo bat and it's not bad, and there are really no, I guess an equivalent conversation you can have is PEDs. Well, everybody can do PEDs, and it's well, yeah, but there are risks associated with that players aren't willing to take. What's the risk of using a torpedo bat? There really isn't any. But then you have a conversation. Karter, let's go down the rabbit hole. Why can't pitchers use sticky stuff?
Well, yeah.
There's no drawback to that.
Well, and then you could take it even a step further, and more baseline discussion of it is that, okay, think about the equipment over the years in all sports, how the equipment's gotten better. Should that be factored in? Dudes in the NBA in the 80s were playing in Chuck Taylor Converses. These are what skater kids are wearing, and they're playing Game 7 NBA Finals in Chuck Taylor Converses. Meanwhile, now dudes have insane braces, and they've got these perfect, shoes with the perfect insoles and all this stuff and all the technology around it. And same with baseball. Everything in baseball, the equipment, the cleats, the gloves, everything has gotten better. And so, do you put that into the discussion? How factor in what a 1980s bat looked like and a 2010 bat looked like? Even
relating it to a different sport that is maybe addressing it a little differently, golf. Golf technology has changed so much. They want to roll the ball back. They want to make the courses longer, which, I guess fields, the Orioles are always changing the depth of their left field regardless, depending on what season it is. So teams can do that, or owners can do that, but it's completely legal. The only type of rule that the MLB has right now about the bat is it has to be a certain diameter, but it doesn't matter where the diameter is. You make that diameter at wherever you want on the bat. So it's a very interesting conversation. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it even goes back to tennis. Think about tennis. Tennis, they used to use freaking wooden rackets. And now, if you've seen one of these new Roger Federer tennis rackets, they're immaculate, and they're $300, and they're perfect, and you can swing, and you have perfect control. If you hit with one of those 1980 rackets, if you don't hit it in the exact perfect spot, that ball's going into the stands and hitting some lady in the fourth row.
Yep, 100%. It's just how sport has changed. So, are you, just for the record, the torpedo bats, fair or foul?
Fair.
I think fair too. Now, I am interested to see how Major League Baseball approaches this, because you will have just a generic rise in offensive stats if they allow it to keep happening. But for the people that aren't for this or upset that batters are able to use this, let me read you a list of players that are currently using them. You have big names on here that are great hitters: Adley Rutschman, Ellie De La Cruz. And by the way, the torpedo bat hasn't been a thing just this year. People were using it last year.
Were the Twins using it?
I think Ryan Jeffers. There is a twin on here somewhere. Yeah, Ryan Jeffers. He uses it. But this bat was created by a guy that was on the Yankees staff last year. Now he's with the Marlins, which I don't know why you take a job at the Marlins, but this is not a new thing. It was just attention was brought to it because of the Yankees start. But even Aaron Judge wasn't using it. So like everybody was like, oh, the bats. Well, Aaron Judge's 3 home run performance or whatever it was not a product of the Torpedo bat. It was just he's that good of a hitter. But
yeah.
Adley Rutschman, Ellie De La Cruz, as of just recently, Jose Trevino, who is the Reds catcher now, played on the Yankees last year. He's been using the bat for 2 years, and he's one of the worst offensive catchers in Major League Baseball. So, I think maybe in baseball, it has more to do with confidence, and baseball players are very superstitious. So using the Torpedo bat, and if you have success with it, maybe it's more of building up confidence for that player, and maybe it's more of a mental thing more so than the actual, physical part of it. I say fair. I say let's allow all the home runs possible. I love runs in baseball. I'm not going to hate it.
It makes it way better. Dylan, can I bring up a question outside of the Torpedo bat discussion?
Sure. I'm worried that you were on your phone for that long, and now you have a question. Did someone text you
I just got
something?
some breaking news about BYU stuff, so I had to deal with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I was on my Schefter type stuff, Dylan. Come on, man.
I was worried Connor was texting you something that I told him in private.
No, I was texting with the BYU coach. Slight flex. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Depending who you're talking to, maybe major flex.
Yeah, if you're talking to BYU fan. Anyhow, the Braves. Are you worried?
Yes, let's talk about the Braves.
Are you worried about the Atlanta Braves starting the season off 0-6? Concern levels. I know April baseball doesn't matter. Even May baseball, for that matter, doesn't necessarily matter. Are you worried about this Braves team this season, or do they turn it around and all of a sudden win the World Series?
Well, Karter, I'm kind of offended. Because if you followed any of my baseball content, you would know I was not high on the Braves to begin with.
Well, I knew that, but this is this might be a whole nother level of concern where it's, hey, is it 911, hit the panic button? There's 156 games to go. Obviously, this is going to change, but I know you weren't big on the Braves, but I think the national baseball media might be. Well,
0-6 is a very tough start.
That's like Oakland A's type stuff.
Yeah, why is old Oakland A's though? Or I guess Oakland A's are technically old because now they're just the Athletics. What am I worried? The offense worries me. The fact that they went 29 innings scoreless, and that was just, the Braves' identity 3 years ago whenever they won that World Series was the offense. Now they're missing pieces they had. Freddie Freeman's no longer there. But the fact that they're not producing on offense is very worrisome. Now their pitching has gotten a lot better. Schwellenbach, I think he's going to have a great year. Sale has had good performances. He's old. I don't know how he's going to be able to stay healthy the whole year. Am I worried about the offense, I guess is what I would say. But then you have the Jerks and Profar stuff where it's like, we can get into that here after I get your thoughts on this whole thing, but like that's not good either. And when he comes back, you're not going to get a good version of the guy. To have any hope, Ronald Acuna Jr. has to come back and be what he was pre-injury, like right away. And you got to fix stuff on offense. But my official take is I'm worried about the offense. Pitching, not at all.
So you look at the first 2 series, it's Padres and Dodgers. You don't think they get a get-right series against the Marlins right up next?
But the Marlins aren't anything to sneeze at either.
Yeah, but you know what the Marlins.
I know it's early. I get it. It's early.
Dylan, you remember this? I think last year I bet on. You remember this? You were texting me baseball futures. I didn't take a single baseball future outside the Mets to win the World Series. I do it every year. But then last year I took like 5 different baseball futures. And one of my biggest ones I took was Oakland A's over like 54.5 games. The Oakland A's started off like 10-3 or something, I remember correctly. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, I'm sitting pretty. This is no problem. Oakland A's stunk last year. Like, that's why I'm saying you can't overreact to this right now.
You can't. You're right. They've played the Padres and the Dodgers, who are both undefeated, which they go hand in hand. Obviously, the Dodgers are undefeated. They had that 2-game series against the Cubs in Japan, but the Braves have no wins because they've played 2 undefeated teams. You can't worry too much, but the fact that they're last in weighted runs created plus and like all of these offensive metrics I'm looking at, like weighted on base average, they're just last in so many of these categories that they can't be last in. But then their pitching is like not bad, really not that bad. They had a couple bad outings, but I'm not worried. You're exactly right. The beginning of the season doesn't matter, and that's kind of a problem with baseball, but not really. Kind of depends how you look at it. Is every game doesn't matter.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. But the excitement is so high for opening day, which does make me jealous as a non-baseball guy, where I'm like, man, I wish I loved that feeling of opening day and got that excitement like I do with March Madness or, week 1 NFL, week 1 college football, like a big college football game or whatever. But the other thing with this Braves thing, do you ever think like guys, these seasoned vets in Major League Baseball, when the season starts, they just look at the calendar and go, we have 156 more of these. 156 more. I know these guys love baseball. Yeah. I know they're insanely competitive. But that has to come into play a little bit. Plus, also starting your season off on a West Coast road trip, like I don't think that necessarily helps either. When you've already lived away from your place in Atlanta at that point as well. Like, have these dudes been home in Atlanta since what? When does spring training start? When do you report? Early
Valentine's
February?
Day. Pitchers and catchers report Valentine's Day.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so they haven't been home since the beginning of February.
I think, yeah, I get what you're saying. Now, when you say that about the length of the schedule, I'm like, I have 150 some games left. Are you talking about the Braves now after they're 0-6 or 0-7, or before the season starts?
Either way.
I think there is a point to where if you're going through a rough patch and you, like the Braves are 0-6 and you're like, I got to do this 150 some more times. Like that can be disheartening, but it's also kind of the flip is like if you get hot, it's like, we can just keep this rolling. It's very momentum based. And that's the thing about baseball is like you play almost every day. And that's why opening day is so exciting because like as a Reds fan, you're watching baseball every day. And we're like football, it's once a week or whatever. You bring up good points. You brought up better points than I expected. Not being a baseball guy.
Wow!
I don't know what I was expecting. The bar was mildly low.
Oh, it should have been.
I didn't expect you to bring up anything. I was expecting jerks and Profar PEDs and Torpedo bat. But look at you. Are you worried about the Braves as a Mets fan?
No, well, if you're a Mets fan, then you're always worried about the Braves. You're worried about everything and everyone, everything on earth if you're a Mets fan. And you also at the same time, it's one of those things where you're so pessimistic you don't even have hope. Where you're just like, some way somehow they'll choke it. It's almost like a Clippers fan in the NBA or just historically bad franchises.
But what does choking it look like? Because last year wasn't really choking it.
They didn't choke last year. No, it's not even that. I don't know. In the baseball playoffs, they're just it's so volatile. You don't effing know. Like I remember watching those games. I was like actually trying to like watch and tune in, and I'm like, hey, I'm rooting for the Mets here. I'd bet on the Mets or something. Oh my gosh, watching those games is just a heart attack the entire time. And to do that, luckily, if you lose a game in April right now, you don't remember that game for the rest of your life. You don't remember it 2 days later. Can you tell me what happened 3 days ago in the Reds game?
Ellie De La Cruz.
Was that when he went bananas with the torpedo bats?
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. It's it's like I think the saying is you can win your season in March and April, or you can't win a World Series in March and April, but you can lose it or something like that. But in the Braves case, you have to think the offense has to give at some point because it's been so bad. I had a point to bring up, and I forget what we were talking about. Mets. That's frustrating. All right. Anyway, Jerks and Pro. You go ahead. You go, Carter.
Mine are bigger picture baseball things. So keep going.
Well, I want to talk about the Jerks and Profar issue. This is very interesting, and in hindsight, obviously hindsight is always 20/20, but I think anybody could have probably seen this coming if you just looked at his stats. Jerks and Profar suspended 80 games for the use of HGC, which is something that Manny Ramirez used, and it essentially restarts like the natural testosterone producing cycle in your body. Players use it after. T. Yeah, if you got low T, or maybe in this case it's probably too much T and you're worried about getting tested. But you use it after you take a steroid cycle to make things look normal. So obviously Jerks and Profar comes out and says, "Oh, I had no clue about this, yada, yada, yada." If you look at Jerks and Profar's numbers, so he started his career in 2012 at Texas. Then he went to Oakland for a year, San Diego, Colorado, San Diego. His numbers up until he got to San Diego in 2023 were not great. We're looking at OPS plus. OPS plus is a stat that's standardized to 100. So over 100 is better than average, under 100 is worse than average. OPS plus in 21, 83. You did have a 109 in 22. 23, 81. So that was a 77 in his time at Colorado. A huge thing came out. Oh, he doesn't like Colorado, whatever. He puts up a 135 last year in San Diego. 135. And this guy was never an awesome baseball player. Has a breakout season last year, and then all of a sudden he gets caught for PEDs. In hindsight, not surprising to anybody. Now, second question, I beg you, Carter. PED use in baseball. Fair or foul?
This might be a bad take. Foul?
I think foul too. And here's how I've heard it put to me. PEDs, there are guys vying for spots on these rosters that do it the right way, that do it the clean way, that are probably more talented than Jerks and Profar, that are getting gypped of spots on major league rosters because of the PED use. You can look at Profar's numbers. He posted a 33 OPS plus in 2017 at Texas. Like this guy, you could make a case there are minor leaguers out there that deserve a spot on a roster more than him, but because he decided to use PEDs, it changes the whole conversation. And it hurts me for the minor leaguers that want to make the jump that this is what they have to compete with, I guess. It's unfortunate.
But, I mean, so if you're a... Yeah, that's the problem. The problem is what you mentioned earlier is that not everybody's willing to take those unknown long-term risks with their bodies if you take these kinds of steroids. And if you're Major League Baseball, like, look, it's a lame take, but you kind of have to look at it from a liability standpoint. Let's say you do allow PEDs, and then these dudes are taking these wacky steroids from Russia and all over the world and whatnot. They take them, and then, one of these superstar baseball players, they get to their early 50s, and all of a sudden their brain's cooked and they die because they were taking PEDs to play baseball. Now, does that come back and the MLB gets sued by their family, and then everybody who took PEDs during their time said, well, you guys were encouraging this stuff. You guys have to do this. We're going to sue the crap out of you. I feel like it's just too slippery of a slope if you just let it happen.
It also really favors players that would be, like if you just said, oh, we can do PEDs. It favors the players that are willing to take more risks with their bodies. Like it's the guys that might be willing to take an experimental, human growth hormone over, maybe not doing it at all. And they don't really know what the effects are, but they're like, hey, I don't really care as long as I get big and I can get better at baseball. Like I understand why it has to be regulated. But what's interesting to me, Jerks and Profar got traded to the San Diego Padres. Tatis served an 80-game PED stint, I think 22.
So it's a Padre thing.
I'm thinking it's a West Coast thing. Like Jerkson all of a sudden comes over to San Diego, and it's like, hey, Tatis is using these PEDs. Now, Tatis is a bit of an anomaly because even after he served his suspension for the PED use, he comes back, and the guy's a perennial MVP candidate. But it's kind of like Jerkson comes over and sees Tatis using it. It's like, okay, maybe I'll get my hands on this too, which, kind of begs the question, like, how many guys do you think are using this stuff that we don't even know because, they don't get tested at a certain time or whatever it might be?
Or they're just way smarter about when they get tested, and they have the system down to a science. They have the nutrition doctors in the building or whatever giving you the PEDs at the perfect times where it doesn't show up on tests and whatnot. I would lean towards that's what's happening at most places.
It's very interesting to think that there might be some kind of a science or to how these players figure it out.
It's in every sport, though. Like, you're telling me Patrick Mahomes did it like in the Super Bowl against the Eagles last time. I mean, the whole time going into that game, you're like, oh, he's got a sprained ankle. He got a high ankle sprain. He's hardly going to be able to move in this game. Dude looked just fine. Probably took some crazy horse pill or something. Like, nothing weird about that?
But my question there would be, do you think he was using an illegal substance, or was he just getting hopped up on painkillers before? Like, taking a bunch of painkillers before a game isn't illegal in baseball, but taking human growth hormone is.
But, like, that goes back to my original point where, okay, once these guys are in their 50s and 60s after taking all these drugs, do they get to sue the MLB or the NFL when they get to that point later on? So, like, should painkillers be in that range too?
No, that's a question I don't really know the answer to, I guess. It just seems like it's more, because I thought about it within the context of a different sport, football, basketball. It just seems so much more rampant in baseball than it is in other sports. And I don't know if that's because of, when you think of PEDs, I don't know about you, I don't think of football. I think of baseball almost immediately. And that's because you've had such big figures, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, like, be involved in these scandals, PED scandals, I guess is what you'd call it.
Sneaky PED sport, tennis.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah.
That would make sense. But it was just interesting. Look, in hindsight, being 2020, it's like you look at, I have his baseball reference page pulled up, and you look at all these numbers, it makes a lot of sense, and you can kind of tell when he started taking these PEDs. It might have been when he got to San Diego in 23.
That's the problem, is because the funniest part is who's that one guy? He was either on the Red Sox or the Orioles, and he got struck out. It was like Chris Davis or something. He got struck out like 40 games in a row or something, couldn't hit a thing. I think he had like the longest non-hit streak in a game, in a stretch of games in Major League Baseball history. Chris Davis? I'm pretty sure that was his name, right?
I don't know. There's the first thing that pops up is the historic downfall of Chris Davis on YouTube. That's one of the first search results. Recent guy?
Yeah, this was like 3 years ago, right? It was a hitless streak. He went 0 for 54 or 0 for 54 straight.
Jeez,
So, let's say a guy like Chris Davis, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one's drug testing him during that stretch right there. But what if he was taking PEDs? It always is 20/20 hindsight, because you look back at a guy like Profar and you see that massive jump. You go, oh, that's pretty damning. But you never see it come out a guy who's having like a major, major decline and going, I wonder if he's taking PEDs. Which the thing is, some of these guys probably are, and they're just stinking at baseball and they're just not hitting the ball right.
But yeah, we don't really know about the guys that are taking PEDs and it's not working or it's not helping them. That's a great point. We only hear about the ones that get caught because it's going well for them. That's a fair point. I didn't think of that. Karter, you had some other talking points?
Yeah, we could do a couple things here. Baseball expansion. If baseball expands 2 more franchises to 2 more cities, obviously Vegas is getting the A's, and who knows when. I feel like they're going to be playing in Sacramento for the next 6 years, because you've been to Las Vegas. You know where it's the Tropicana, or that casino right off the Strip.
Yeah,
where they're building the ballpark. You've seen it there. That's going to be a disaster to build. Also, it's going to be ridiculously hot down there. The fact that they're not doing a dome is bananas.
Crazy.
Or at least one like a retractable dome, but it must be cheap ownership, whatever. Just crazy, crazy stuff there, because even Vegas at night in the summer is awful. Awful. But anyhow, I'm sorry. We're going all over. I'm jumping all over the place here, but you've been on the Las Vegas Strip in the summertime. It smells terrible. Do you think the ballpark is going to get a whiff of that smell in there, or will the hot dogs and popcorn and everything else of a baseball game get rid of that smell? Because if that Vegas Strip smell is in the ballpark, it'll be the most unbearable baseball experience of all time.
You're right. That's the whole Las Vegas thing just as a whole, I was excited for. I still am a little excited for it. It's an awful place to put a baseball stadium. All the concerns you brought up are very legitimate. You have to have a dome, or at least a retractable dome, because it gets to be it feels like 130 degrees in the middle of July there.
It'd be awesome. Now,
What?
this obviously would never happen because the Raiders already have their stadium. What if they just shared and did it at Allegiant and they put in the dirt field and the Raiders are still having to play on baseball dirt?
I was going to say that the Raiders did that way back when.
That's what I'm saying.
That's so funny.
They go back to the Coliseum, but they just do it inside of Allegiant.
That would be just like a little role reversal there.
Yeah, they just move it all down to Vegas.
The Las Vegas thing is like, I like the idea. If I'm in town, I'll go. Well, depends how hot it is, if you want me to be honest, and there's no dome. It's like, it's miserable there in the summer. But Las Vegas getting a team, are you talking about actually adding teams?
Now, I'm talking about actually adding teams because it seems like Manfred and MLB want to add 2 more teams. What 2 cities do you want?
I did a piece for Action. I think Raleigh would be a pretty good place. Raleigh for a baseball team. And then probably,
because the favorites are Raleigh/Charlotte, Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake City, and I feel like there was one more, maybe Montreal.
It was between Nashville and Salt Lake City for me. Salt Lake City is probably beautiful in the summer, I would think. But Nashville's kind of like, I feel like you'd be able to get more buy-in in Salt Lake City because Nashville has Atlanta, Nashville has Cincinnati. Like, there are teams around there where you really only have the Rockies up near, I guess maybe the Mariners.
It would be the Rockies, but like there's really nothing for baseball fans out here.
I would think Salt Lake City. How has the hockey expansion gone?
Great, but let's call it like it is with hockey though. It's a cold weather city and a ton of white people. Hockey was going to do all right here.
That's true. It was kind of set for success there in Salt Lake City. But then baseball,
I think it would do great. I think Utah could have any sports franchise coming here at this point now. People out in Utah are looking for sober fun wherever they can find it. And look, if you can take your kids to a cheap baseball game, you can get a little family pack for $40 and get a couple hot dogs, whatever. They're going to come out and support this team or whatever. Utah does that. But I feel like Nashville has to be the one. And I'm from North Carolina, moving back to North Carolina. And I would want a team in Raleigh or Charlotte, but the issue is I don't know if the fan support would be there for a North Carolina baseball team because I feel like they're already, look, you're either a Braves fan, a Yankees fan, a Nationals, Red Sox, whatever. I feel like so many people already have their allegiances, and I feel like that's the problem with expansion franchises in the modern day in all sports is that you already have the teams you've been rooting for, and I know this was kind of a problem back in the day when like the Panthers and the Jaguars came into the NFL, but I feel like it's even worse today.
Yeah, I do think from a fan perspective, I think you will be able to get more of a buy-in in Salt Lake City. I don't know much about, could that be overloading the infrastructure at all? Putting a hockey team there as quick as you did and then throwing a baseball team in there?
No.
You're a big Salt Lake City infrastructure believer, huh?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw there was a bunch of articles saying this is like the #1 growing economy. The place is booming out here. And that's why I'm getting out of town. The housing prices are too much out there.
Yeah, there you go. Selling at the right time. Yeah, I hear that. No, I would say Salt Lake City or Raleigh. Those would be my 2. Nashville, close third. Nashville third.
Really?
Yeah, and I like Nashville, but they got the Predators. They have the Titans. I guess you could say the same thing about Salt Lake City, but
I would rather have the team in Raleigh for selfish reasons, but don't you feel like the fact that they're making sure an MLB team's in Vegas, those are the 2 big hotshot tourism spots right now is Vegas and Nashville. I feel like MLB's going to demand they have a team in Nashville.
It would make sense. The problem about the conversation we're having in general is the divisions would be uneven. And we did that for the longest time where the the NL Central had 6 teams, the AL Central had 4, and they just made a point of emphasis to reorganize that. So I don't know if they're going to be willing to make two like one division on the American League with 6 teams, one division on the National League with 6 teams. I think it would almost have to be like a 6-team expansion and add a team to every division.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not Rob Manfred.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Other baseball stuff I wanted to touch on, I'm looking at right here. Are the White Sox totally butt cheeks still?
So, fun fact: if you watch the beginning of the show, you'll know this because it was in the baseball Blitz. As not anymore, but before yesterday's games, the Chicago White Sox were the only team whose starting pitchers had a 0 ERA.
Let's go.
So there's like they're not bad. The AL Central as a division is bad. Now, do I think they're going to hold on and win the division? No. Their offense kind of struggles, and their number one pitcher, their ace, is a guy I've never heard of before. But they're tied for first in that division, 2-3 with the Guardians and the Royals.
Okay, so give me this real quick, and then we'll wrap up here. Let me ask you this. Who's going to be the worst team in baseball by the end of the season?
Worst team in baseball? I don't think it's going to be the Athletics. I'm looking at a list of the teams here. I honestly was thinking maybe Marlins. I was thinking the Marlins fall from grace. Nationals won't be. They're going to be decent. I'm going to go Marlins. Who are you? Are you saying Rockies?
I'll go Rockies. I think you got to base it on the division a little bit too, because if they're having to play against, I mean, that's a great point about the Marlins too. I mean, you got to play the Phillies, Mets, and Braves a billion times a season, so that doesn't help. But yeah, I'll go Rockies. Big altitude guy over here. Then my other question is, have you wavered in your thoughts of who's going to win the World Series this year?
Who did I say? I got a couple teams I like. I've bet on the Mariners and the Red Sox to win the World Series before the season started. The Dodgers, and I think the Padres could do it. Obviously, the Dodgers could do it. The Dodgers just signed a guy off of the A's roster that they let go that's going to end up, he's going to be a pretty good base stealer. It just seems like the Dodgers are spending money willy-nilly. I'll go right now. This is a buy low spot, because I think they're second to last in their division. They're last in their division, tied for last. I'm going to go Seattle Mariners. I think they win the World Series.
You think the Seattle Mariners do?
Seattle Mariners. They're one of the best pitching rotations in all of baseball. Their closer is amazing. They got to get the offense going. If they find themselves in contention come the All-Star break, I think there's going to be a real point of emphasis for the Mariners to get a couple bats, and they'll make a push. But their pitching's there.
Shout out my guy, Cal Raleigh.
That's your guy? Big Dumper?
Yeah.
How's he your guy?
I had a home run bet with him last year. That's all I remember.
He's the guy to bet. The dude's he just signed an extension. He's one of the best offensive catchers in the league.
Yeah, I had a big home
Dumper
run parlay with him. Him and, oh my gosh, I can't remember who was in it, but he was the last leg, and it was awesome. It was a nice parlay. I'm just going to stick with the Mets. I say the Mets every year. Let's go Mets, Let's make it happen.
The rotation's not looking great. Everybody is injured.
Yeah.
Frankie Montas injured.
Yeah. Brutal bullpen for the Mets.
Yeah, bullpen's there's not a lot good on the pitching side, but fun offense. Did you have anything else, Karter?
I did not. I have nothing else.
Have you seen the Chicago White Sox tarp situation?
Yeah, I did that. So the taxpayers are paying for that?
That's their tarp. It's a bunch of little tarps.
Wasn't there something saying that like the city of Chicago has to pay for the tarp people?
I don't know, to be honest.
I might have gotten ball sacked. I don't know. My Twitter timeline's been a disaster over the last few days. So
yesterday is a dangerous day to be online.
Yeah, it was
April Fool's Day.
Yeah, it was a day like, okay, I'm done being online or whatever. But
yeah,
Twitter timeline's been a disaster. Yeah, the tarp situation. Everything about the White Sox. Just how do these franchises that are just committed to we're not going to spend money, we're just going to be bad forever. Like, do they ever make it out of it? Like, think about the Angels.
Yeah, and they've even spent money
a little bit. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, think about, like, will the A's, even if they go to Las Vegas, will they ever get out of this stuff?
Well, the A's, I'm bullish on. I am bullish on the A's because they're
not going to the playoffs or anything.
Not this year, but they've extended, like, they signed Brent Rooker to a 6-year contract. They signed Severino from the Mets, who was like, that's just something the A's would have never done before. And then they extend Lawrence Butler. Like, they're at least signaling to somebody out there that they are wanting to make positive movement in the trajectory of their team. Now, could it be like just a fake signal and they're going to trade these guys later? I don't know, but they very rarely do they lock up guys like Brent Rooker for 6 or 7 years. So I'm bullish on them. They won't make the playoffs this year, I don't think, but they're not going to be the laughing stock of the MLB like they have in years past.
All right, that's fair. I think it'd be cool to catch a game at their ballpark, them and the Rays.
Yeah, that would be really cool. There's I root for these teams. Like the White Sox with the 8,000 tarps on their field. I want the White Sox to prove it to the people and be like, okay, you're going to give us no resources. We're going to go out and win the division. I'm rooting for the A's. I like the little guy story. I'm all for that. But Karter, it was a pleasure. We went much longer than I thought we were going to go.
Hey man, you underestimated me. Also,
I underestimated you, Karter.
You better text me your calendar schedule because I'm getting back to regular scheduled programming next week with the KarterKast. And look, NBA's on the horizon, but we got a different format with the KarterKast going forward, and on the podcast side. And I'm going to need a little someone to help out with some Masters preview.
Oh, you want Masters preview? I give you Masters preview.
We got NBA's on the A block, and then we're gonna do a little Masters preview to close up shop.
I love it. Yeah, you just let me know. It's been fun. Right. We'll have to do baseball more often because this went pretty well.
Yeah. Hopefully people enjoyed this. Hopefully people weren't like, this guy's a total idiot.
Oh no, it was good. It was good. Now you know what I do enjoy though, Karter. I enjoy going to baseball games, and you can do that by going to SeatGeek and using code KarterKast and getting $20 off your first purchase of $50 or more. You're coming into town the Friday before Memorial Day, and I know you went to SeatGeek to buy your tickets.
I am. And then just create an account. You didn't hear this from us. Just create an account. Just create a new account.
Email generator.
Just verify your email. Yeah, and create a new account. $20 off your first purchase. $50 minimum purchase required. Now, it was Reds Cubs. I did have to buy 55 tickets to just get to that point, but we got $20 off. So
55 tickets right above the dugout, too. Not even up top, right behind the dugout.
Shout out Great American Ballpark.
Shout out Great American Ballpark. I cannot wait to hear your Great American Ballpark review. One of the best PA announcers.
I promise you, I will. You will start seeing souvenir cup reviews for me. I'm filming my first one this weekend at the Final Four.
It's about time. Those have been coming for.
I know. Long? I've been nervous. I was camera shy about it. I don't want to do it. And then even my wife got on to me. There's a bunch of stuff. But anyhow, I got to run. So I love you, Dylan. Thank you for having me on. Shout out baseball. It is officially baseball season.
Until next time, I'm going to do it. Bye-bye.